Hello friends, greetings to you. I am so happy to introduce you the very significance of ethical course and the ethical challenges that we are facing today in our society. As a matter of fact, these words morality and ethics are from Latin and Greek language, derived from the word custom. Morality deals with the ethical practices and culture of people, and ethics discusses on the basic issue of humanity on what is right and what is wrong, the evil and the good. There are philosophers, we have Plato, who discussed on this issue in his book Justice. And he very clearly says that we have to draw a distinction between two important issues, that is, what is justice and what is injustice. There are so many philosophers, right from Plato, Aristotle, St. Thomas Aquinas, William James, Karl Marx, and many thinkers like that who have discussed on the ethical foundation of human lives. They raised an important question like, what is important for our happy living and how we bring justice and equality to people in human society. And for that, we have to understand that ethics forms as the foundational of all the endeavors of human life. And for that matter, there are so many ethical issues and challenges that we have to face in the 21st century today, and we have to find so many solutions to these ethical challenges. We have ethics developed as part of industrial society, environmental ethics, legal ethics, professional ethics, and medical ethics, and we have ethics in the public health science, and ethics in all fields of human endeavors. And therefore, it becomes very, very important that we understand what is ethics all about, and ethics forms as the basis of human life as such. We have various religious systems and traditions that have discussed very significantly as to what is human life and how we have to make human life happy and prosperous and justful. We have, for instance, religions like Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, Buddhism, and all these religions have taken up the very fundamental issue of what brings happiness to people and how we have to dwell on these ethical foundations of our human society. And therefore, friends, as I see, we have to probe into many ethical issues, and people who occupy important positions both at the government sector and the private sector, and those who occupy positions as professors and members of ethical committees in various big universities, two colleges, and other organizations, they have to really understand and know how ethics really forms as the basis of any research and any activity and any profession. And therefore, my feeling is that if one is equipped with the ethical concerns and the ethical challenges and ethical problems that we are facing today, that would help the members who serve on various committees to look into the ethical intricacies, ethical aspects of any research project, and would help them to make good decisions, wise decisions, so that research, especially scientific research today, will come a long way for development and to create a justful society and bring in happiness to people. And therefore, my plea is that it is good to equip oneself with the ethical course that comes on online or through certain universities and distance education programs that would help to update their knowledge and to be very clear of giving directions to people. And therefore, I request people who are interested to be in various committees to acquire a course through some of the programs that are offered through internet like ICMR and other programs. And may I thank you once again to just see what ethical program is required for each one of us.
Ethical guidelines for biomedical and behavioral research has been a topic of great interest around the world in the late 70s and early 80s. After the Nuremberg Code and the Helsinki Declaration came out in 47 and 64 respectively, and then subsequent to the international movement and the US coming out with the Belmont report in 79, there was a global interest to come out with the guidelines for every countries and every agencies. In India, we can say that we are one of the earliest countries in the world to come out with the guidelines in 1980. So, the activities to bring out these guidelines started in the late 70s, and finally, these guidelines were released in 1980 as the policy statement for ethical considerations involving research on human beings. It was a small document which was good enough for most of the ethics committees which were set up at that point of time. But then with the developments of science and technology and the global scenario which is changing rapidly in the area of ethical debates and the ethical requirements which have to be fulfilled while doing research with human participants. And when all the international guidelines also started working about coming out with the new guidelines, in the Indian Council of Medical Research also there was a movement starting from 96 to come out with the new guidelines, which ultimately was released in the year 2000 as ethical guidelines for biomedical research on human subjects in 2000. Now, by the time there were so many changes were happening in the world, so many new issues were being discussed because HIV/AIDS came in the scenario, and then many ethical questions were raised for which people needed an answer. So, all agencies started revising, and it became necessary for us also to update these guidelines and come out with a new guidelines in 2006, calling it now ethical guidelines for research on human participants. And that is the time it was realized that human subject is a negative connotation, giving an inferior status to the research participants who are the most important people in any research. And so, since they have an equal partnership as a stakeholder in research, they should not be called as research subjects, but they should be called as research participants. So, the 2000 guidelines were called for research on human participants. All the new topics which were included, the new details which were given regarding ethics committee functioning, and all the other issues which were involved in the 2006 guidelines are good enough till date, but still in the recent time, in the last 10 years after the 2006 guideline was released, there has been again an explosion of new thinking. There has been concerns about various issues regarding the vulnerability. There are a lot of people who are working on the biobanking started realizing that this has more ethical issues than a simple banking procedures and utilization. So, it became necessary again in the year 2016 to relook into this and come out with the new guidelines. And so, now we have the 2017 guidelines, which is now called the National Guidelines for Biomedical and Health Research. So, from biomedical and behavioral research, this has been now expanded to include all types of health research, because research is not just being undertaken by the biomedical scientists or the physicians. Now, the research is being undertaken by various other stakeholders like the geneticists, the epidemiologists, the public health experts, the social scientists. Everybody has been now involved in research involving human participants, and so it has to become necessary to give it a broader concept of biomedical and health research. And so, now we have the new guidelines which should be the Bible for every individual, every stakeholders in research, whether they are researchers, whether they are ethics committee members, whether they are sponsors or the regulators, everybody should be thorough with these new guidelines. Now, having guidelines is not enough at the moment, because we still are lacking in introducing a bioethics education into various universities, medical and other professional curricula. So, it is the entire responsibility of implementing these guidelines or seeing that the guidelines are being followed thoroughly has become the responsibilities of the ethics committee members. Every institution, every group, every organization has their own ethics committee, and it becomes necessary now each one of these members who are multidisciplinary, who are multi-pluralitic, and then for them to understand the requirements which are there and to do a thorough job of an ethics committee member. And so, now we have various agencies internationally working to see that these ethics committees have a quality review mechanism. So, they have a quality control program as well as a quality improve program, so that the accreditation of the ethics committees or a recognition of ethics committees have become a mandate at the moment. Of course, there are no laws in many countries. There are few countries that have got laws now that all ethics committees have to undergo accreditation. In India also, the regulator, the CDSCO, Central Drug Standard Organization, as a control organization, has under the Drugs and Cosmetics Act has made it mandatory that all ethics committees have to register with them, and also now they are going to start an accreditation process. But however, for all kinds of biomedical and health research which are not under the ambit of CDSCO may not come into this category, and they may be out of this system. So, the basic requirement is any ethics committee which is reviewing biomedical, behavioral and health research proposals have to have certain standards. And so, we have these organizations internationally, which is the Forum for Ethics Committees in Asia Pacific. We have an organization called Strategic for Improving Development Capacity of Ethics Review. We have US, we have organizations like AHART which all look into the accreditation, and in India also we have organizations like the Forum for Ethics Review Committees in India which concentrate on ethics committees to see ethics committee have certain standards, they have their own SOPs, the members have their training, so that they are thorough with reviewing the ethics proposals. So, this is the most important activity at the moment, to understand what are the requirements, to see that all procedures and processes are in place, to understand that the most important people undergo this training, so that they know what is to be done and what are the do's and don'ts when you want to do medical research. And ultimately, we are also trying to see that whether we can come out as a bill, so that it becomes mandatory and compulsory for everybody. Of course, having a bill is not an answer for everything. Just because there is a law, it does not mean everybody is abiding by the law. What is more important, that each individual has their own professional code of conduct. They understand that what is code of ethics, what should be followed, whether there is a law or not a law. So, even if the bill does not come through, but at least everybody has to understand the guidelines, so that they follow their professional conscience to understand that what they are doing is the best which could be done to protect the individuals, and then the safety of the research individuals is what is more important. And so, we are trying to see that the each one stakeholder undergo this kind of a training program. So, they are thorough with that, and all help in this regard will be extended to them, so that they know their business, and their business is done in the best possible way, whether they are a researcher or an ethics committee reviewer or whatever is the way in which they are involved in the research. I think that is the whole purpose of coming out with these kind of online courses.
What are the competency investigators should have, how much experience investigators should have, what is the definition of good clinical practices, what is the compensation rules, and what is the reason why you are doing it, what is called as an unmet need, what is the relaxation which can be given in the rare drug, what can be relaxation can be given in the disease situation which are considered as an unmet need or terminally ill cancer patient, how to do research in a vulnerable population like a tribal population, how to do research in a children, how to do a research in a soldier, how to do a research in a patient who cannot be consented upon, for example, in a head injury patient. Now, these all are very technical specific things. So, I suggest that you all, when you take up the ethics committee role as a member or particularly as chairman, you must be fully aware of.
The perspective of layman reflects on the majority of potential human research participants. This is the objective of having a layman in ethics committee. As a member of ethics committee, his or her viewpoints centers around research process are valuable and meant to fulfill the promise of ethical practice. The inputs and contributions of you and me may benefit researchers of various professional backgrounds and other ethics committee members. However, during ethics committee meetings, as a layperson in the midst of subject specialists and other professionals, I am at many times overwhelmed with technical jargons. As a layperson, I am not part of the mainstream discussions. In order to have a fruitful discussion, it is desirable that we should have a understandable communication that benefits all the members equally. Further, it is essential that all the members, including layperson in ethics committee, should be up to date with prevailing norms in the country for meaningful ethics review.
The member secretary of any ethics committee acts as a fulcrum to steer a gamut of processes smoothly and efficiently. The language with which a member secretary communicates has to be understood by all the ethics committee members alike. For this purpose, there is a need that all the ethics committee members have to be uniformly exposed to an up-to-date course covering all the aspects of ethical review procedures. I am sure that some of you might have noticed or experienced that many international grants or accreditation bodies make it mandatory, or they expect that research applications and reviewers of ethics committees have undergone necessary training in research ethics and in the ethics committee function and standard operating procedure. The goal of such common course is to impart common knowledge to everyone and to ensure protection of human participants.
Good clinical research requires the protection of patients and populations to the highest level. In order to carry out medical research, it's important to identify a problem, use sound scientific principles to develop potential solutions either for understanding or for product or intervention development. In order to carry out good clinical research, it's important to apply good clinical practices. And these clinical practices apply to all kinds of research, whether it is observational, interventional, or any other kind, including clinical trials. In order to carry out such research using good clinical practices, it's important to understand the principles that are required to protect patients and populations. The education of ethics committee members so that they can be partners in the process is a very important component of this endeavor. And if you look at the work that the National Institute of Epidemiology and the Indian Council of Medical Research are doing in terms of promoting education in this area, it is a remarkable effort and needs to be supported in every shape or form. I'm sure that this will go a long way towards educating ethics committees to carry out studies that are done to the highest ethical standards and follow sound scientific principles. In other words, do studies that require good clinical practice.